Hi, I'm Ryan Duffy, and I'm just some guy from Ireland, and uh, I thought I would do this video to explain what dyspraxia is and what it was like for me growing up with it. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because if somebody has other things like ADHD or dyslexia, uh, a lot of people already know what that is, and they are able to understand that person better. But the majority of the people I know don't actually know what dyspraxia is. So I want to make a video kind of explaining what it was and how it was for me growing up with it. Uh, Dyspraxia is a motor skill disorder, and I actually have this planning sheet right here for what I'm gonna say, because if I didn't have this, I would have absolutely no idea what to talk about. So, dyspraxia affects your motor skills, which would cause your handwriting to not be nearly as good as anybody else's. Your balance would be very off. You'd be bumping into a lot of things. It mainly affects children, but it can also severely affect people my age or older who haven't been able to control or work or practice on the things that have been bringing them down compared to other people. Uh, Another reason why I actually wanted to do this video is because I've never actually talked about dyspraxia in detail. A lot of my friends always ask me what dyspraxia is, and I always gave them short answers, and I never liked explaining it because I always felt that I would be looked down on or looked at less of a person, or I hate feeling sorry for, so I never fully explained what it was. So it affects the handwriting, your rhythm, your timing might be a bit off. That would affect singing, musicians, games, or anything. Your strength can be affected because your muscle tone can won't work as well on some parts of your body as others, uh, and it can affect things like dressing yourself or your speech, and mainly your organization skills or the idea of completing something you set out to do. So as for me, when I was growing up, I didn't actually know I had dyspraxia until about second year in high school or secondary school. And the only reason I knew is because in one of the tests, one of the teachers came up to me and said, "You got a lot of these easy answers mixed up." And from then on, she decided to do these tests, and that's where I found out what I had. And when I did find that out, I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't want anyone talking about it. I didn't want my mom mentioning it. I hated when she used it because it just sounds, whenever she told somebody I had dyspraxia, all all I heard in my head is, this person isn't actually that great, so could you let him off with a few things. I hated that. I wanted to be treated just like everybody else, but by being treated like everyone else, I just couldn't handle things, or I couldn't keep up with a lot of things. So when I grew up in primary school, I was always looked down on. I was like, even not only would the kids make fun of me, but also the teachers would call me a dumb kid or stupid, or I was very slow. At that time, they had no idea. I had no idea what I had. So it also affects your articulation, the way you speak, and the way you form words. Maybe you speak too quickly, too loudly, too quietly. You might pause. You can speak very slow. Often I speak very slow, or I keep pausing what I'm about to say, and the only reason, again, I'm not doing that now is because I have this thing I did. Um, I had to do speech therapy for a good 10 years of my life, from when I was 3 until I was about 13, and then I got bits and pieces of speech therapy when I was 14 and 15. And I can pronounce letters like these. It took me until I was 14 to say D. I'd always say Gee. So my name being Duffy, I kept calling myself Guffy. And of course I got slagged a lot for that. Uh, my handwriting was very off, and the way I practiced that, nobody could read my handwriting, especially not the teachers. Again, prompting this kid is stupid. Um, so what I did was, when I was a kid, I used to write loads of stories, or just write lots of fantasy little novels, and get my creativity up. I just write and write and write, and eventually my handwriting became readable. It's still off, but at least now it's readable. In terms of my balance, I would keep banging into doors, walls, chairs, tables. It'd be very hard for me to walk in a straight line because one part of my body would automatically move to the other side, and I can control it. After a lot of practice, I got better and better at it, but even now I still find myself bumping into loads of things, or if I'm lifting something, I can trip over myself or tumble down. Uh, it also affects holding things. Like, I could hold, say, this cup here, and then if I was asked to hold uh, this cup here, I would focus on holding this so much that I'd actually drop this. So it takes a lot of practicing. The way I practice with holding things is I would get a pen and just start twisting around just like this and holding it and doing it with two sides. And then when I became a musician and a drummer, I did that with the drumsticks, just kept fiddling around with them. Um, in terms of memory and focus, now this is very important for reading and studying at school and listening to people. When you're reading, you'll be reading too fast and you'll be skipping loads of lines by accident, and it's really hard to remember. Like, say, if you're reading Game of Thrones, which I tried to do, you'd read a line saying, and then Tyrion saw Lord Tywin on the privy. You would read it as, and then Tyrion in the privy, and then you realize you just missed out like 5 words. Then you have to go back, and then you'll read 2 more lines, and then you actually can't remember those lines you just read, and you read them over and over, and it would take at least 5 times longer than everybody else to read. Eventually I actually gave up on reading because it was too hard for me and too stressful, and I would just get angry and throw the books away. So what I did at school was I listened while I read. So I wouldn't be reading myself, I would be hearing what they say. I wouldn't be reading in my mind what I was saying. I wouldn't be tripping over myself reading because I'd be listening to the teacher say everything in order, and that helped a lot. Eventually it came to a point where I had to study for exams. I refused to study, but instead I worked really hard at school. Because I gave up on studying because I knew, what's the point? I just will just waste time and I wouldn't be able to study. And I'm still like that now. I wish when I was younger I would have practiced reading a bit more. Thing about dyspraxia is, the sooner you learn you have it, and the sooner you work and practice on all the things you have problems with, the easier things will be when you're my age or older. I'm 20 years old now and I'm still suffering a lot, but I'm doing a lot better. I was